What if I told you that the cheese sitting quietly in your fridge could be raising your blood pressure, stiffening your joints, and slowly draining your strength, all without a single symptom? It sounds dramatic, but in 2023, Dr. Ellen Shaw published a study in the Journal of Geriatric Nutrition that revealed something alarming. Older adults who regularly consume processed cheeses showed significantly higher levels of inflammation, reduced muscle mass, and poorer cardiovascular function. These aren't rare cases. These are everyday foods eaten by millions of seniors who simply don't know the risks. And that's the danger. Cheese is everywhere, on toast, in sandwiches, stirred into soups, sprinkled over dinner. It's comforting, familiar. But what most people don't realize is that not all cheeses are the same. Some are rich in high-quality protein, calcium, and compounds that fight inflammation. Others are packed with additives, excess salt, and unhealthy fats that quietly wear the body down. That's why today, I want to show you the difference. We'll look at 4 cheeses you should avoid, and 4 you should embrace, all backed by science, all available at your local grocery store. Because after 60, every food choice matters, and cheese is no exception. Let's start with the first one you should stop eating today. Before we dive in, take a moment to think about your own habits. Is cheese a regular part of your meals? Maybe something you reach for at breakfast, or a slice you melt into lunch without thinking twice? If so, you're not alone, but you might want to pay close attention to what's coming next. Let's begin with one of the most deceptive foods in the dairy aisle. Processed cheese slices. You've seen them. Neatly wrapped, perfectly square, and always ready to melt smoothly over toast or burgers. They're convenient, familiar, and for many older adults, they're a go-to comfort food. But here's the truth. Those little yellow squares are barely cheese at all. Processed cheese slices are highly engineered products. They're made from a blend of leftover cheese scraps, oils, preservatives, emulsifiers, and artificial coloring. On the label, they're often called cheese food or cheese product, and that wording is no accident. By law, they don't qualify as real cheese. Why does that matter? Because what they lack in nutrition, they make up for in hidden damage. Each slice contains very little high-quality protein, usually under 5 grams, far too little to support aging muscles. And instead, they're loaded with sodium and saturated fats that fuel chronic inflammation. That inflammation doesn't always show up as pain. Sometimes it shows up as fatigue, swelling in your hands and feet, or a lingering ache in your legs. Worse, the chemical emulsifiers used to make them melt evenly can disrupt gut health, something we now know is deeply connected to immunity, mood, and even muscle metabolism in seniors. I once met a patient named Robert, 71, who ate 2 slices every morning on his breakfast sandwich. He thought he was getting dairy and protein, but after months of joint stiffness and poor leg strength, we removed them from his diet. Within 6 weeks, he noticed less swelling, better energy, and easier movement getting up from chairs. It wasn't magic. It was removal of a silent saboteur. Processed cheese slices are everywhere because they're cheap and long-lasting, but your body deserves more than that, especially after 60. You need protein that heals, not fillers that harm. Don't worry, we'll get to what you can eat instead. But first, let's move to the next cheese you should probably leave behind. Next on the list is one that feels innocent, soft, spreadable, and often seen as the lighter option. But don't let the texture fool you. Cream cheese may be doing more harm than you think. At first glance, it doesn't seem dangerous. It's smooth, cool, and mild in flavor. Many older adults use it as a gentle spread on toast or crackers, thinking it's a safe dairy option, especially compared to sharper, saltier cheeses. But here's the truth. Cream cheese is mostly fat, and not the kind that helps you. A typical 2 tablespoon serving contains around 9 to 10 grams of fat, with over 5 grams of it being saturated fat. That might not sound like much, until you realize that's nearly a quarter of the recommended daily limit for saturated fat in someone over 60. Saturated fat is one of the leading dietary contributors to inflammation in older adults. When that inflammation becomes chronic, it can affect not just your arteries and joints, but also your muscles. And what about protein? That same serving of cream cheese contains barely 2 grams of protein. That's not fuel, That's filler. For an aging body trying to hold on to lean muscle, you need at least 20 grams of high-quality protein per meal. If your breakfast is toast with cream cheese, you're starting the day with almost no nutritional support for your muscles, only calories that strain your heart and increase body fat. Worse yet, most commercial cream cheeses include emulsifiers, thickeners, and stabilizers, additives designed to keep the texture smooth and the product stable on store shelves. But these additives can disrupt the lining of your gut over time. And your gut, believe it or not, is where a huge portion of your immune system lives. When that gut barrier weakens, inflammation spreads more easily, and muscle recovery slows down. I remember working with a woman named Lynette, age 66. She was sharp, active, and took pride in staying independent. Every morning she had a toasted bagel with cream cheese and coffee. "It's my quiet little joy," she told me. But over time she noticed changes. Subtle at first, she felt bloated, especially after breakfast. Her legs would feel sluggish around noon, and she found herself sitting more often during the day. "I just don't feel as light as I used to," she said. We didn't take away her joy, we just redirected it. She swapped out the cream cheese for a bowl of cottage cheese with sliced berries and a drizzle of honey. Within 2 weeks, she reported better digestion, less fatigue, and a surprising return of energy in her afternoon walks. "I feel like I'm feeding my body again," she said. And she was. Cream cheese may look harmless, but for older adults trying to maintain strength, clarity, and balance, it's the wrong kind of soft. Next, let's look at a cheese that hits hard with flavor, and even harder with health consequences. Now let's talk about a cheese that many people see as a gourmet indulgence. Something special, sharp, and sophisticated. I'm talking about blue cheese. For some, blue cheese is a flavor they've grown to love. Crumbled into salads, melted onto steaks, or blended into creamy dressings, it adds a bold, tangy taste that feels more elevated than the standard cheese slice. But behind that punch of flavor lies a storm of risks, especially for older adults. The biggest problem? Sodium. Blue cheeses like Roquefort, Stilton, and Gorgonzola are among the saltiest cheeses available. Just 1 ounce, about a spoonful, can contain upwards of 400 to 500 milligrams of sodium. That's nearly a quarter of the daily sodium limit recommended for seniors in just one bite. And the dangers of excess salt aren't abstract. High sodium intake is directly linked to increased blood pressure, hardened arteries, and reduced blood flow to muscles. Over time, poor circulation means slower muscle repair, greater fatigue, and higher risk of falls due to weak, undernourished tissue. But it doesn't stop there. Blue cheese is also high in saturated fat, often containing more than 6 grams per ounce. That's the kind of fat that promotes inflammation throughout the body, especially in joints and soft tissues. For someone already dealing with stiffness or arthritis, blue cheese can quietly worsen the symptoms bite by bite. There's also the issue of tolerance. Blue cheese is aged and fermented using molds that create its distinctive veins. While these molds are generally safe, some people over 60 become more sensitive to these compounds over time, leading to digestive issues, headaches, or even skin flare-ups. I once worked with a man named Harold, 73. He loved his blue cheese salad every evening, thought it was a healthy habit because it involved greens. But after months of joint pain and creeping blood pressure, we took a closer look at what was hiding in the dressing. It wasn't the lettuce causing problems, it was the cheese. Within a month of cutting it out, Harold felt looser in his shoulders, lighter in his steps, and more in control. Blue cheese is bold, but it doesn't have to bully your body. If strength and balance are your goals, there are better ways to add flavor without feeding inflammation. Next, let's look at a cheese that's even more American than its name, and just as processed. And now we come to one of the most iconic and most misleading cheeses in the American diet: processed American cheese. You've seen it in diners, school lunches, and probably your own fridge at some point. It's that perfectly square, bright yellow slice that melts into the ideal texture on burgers, grilled sandwiches, or scrambled eggs. It's familiar, comforting, and deeply tied to memory. But nutritionally, it's one of the worst choices for aging bodies. First, let's clear up a common misconception. American cheese isn't real cheese. It's a processed product made by combining leftover dairy proteins, vegetable oils, preservatives, emulsifying salts, and colorants. It's engineered to behave like cheese, but your body recognizes the difference. And that difference matters more after 60. Each slice typically contains about 300 to 400 milligrams of sodium, nearly 4 grams of saturated fat, and just 4 to 5 grams of protein, hardly enough to feed your muscles. What it does deliver, however, is a steady drip of inflammatory compounds that can stress your cardiovascular system and digestive health over time. Processed cheeses like this also contain phosphate additives, used to stabilize texture and shelf life. In older adults, excess phosphates have been linked to weakened bone density, impaired kidney function, and calcium loss. A dangerous combination for anyone at risk of falls or fractures. Even worse, these slices are often combined with refined carbs. Think white bread or crackers, creating a fast-absorbing combo that spikes blood sugar and leaves little nutritional value behind. One man I met, Miguel, 69, had American cheese every day, sometimes twice a day. He thought he was keeping meals simple and familiar, but over time he noticed he was short of breath. Walking uphill, had persistent leg cramps, and was sleeping poorly. Once he swapped out the slices for natural cheese options, his blood pressure readings improved, and so did his energy. American cheese is convenient, but so is a cane, once you start needing one. Your choices today determine your independence tomorrow. Let's shift now, from what to avoid to what you can enjoy with confidence. Up next, 4 cheeses that actually support your muscles, your digestion, and your long-term health. Now that we've seen what to avoid, let's talk about a cheese that can actually support your body after 60, starting with one of the most flavorful options, feta. Feta is a white, crumbly cheese traditionally made from sheep's milk or a mix of sheep and goat milk. And unlike the highly processed varieties we just discussed, feta is typically fermented using simple, natural methods. It's rich in taste, but even richer in benefits for aging muscles and circulation. For starters, feta is a complete protein. That means it contains all 9 essential amino acids. Your muscles need to repair and grow. Just 100 grams of feta delivers around 14 grams of protein, enough to kickstart muscle recovery when added to a salad or a veggie omelet. Even more important for seniors, feta is relatively low in saturated fat compared to many hard cheeses, and it's one of the few cheeses that naturally contains conjugated linoleic acid, CLA. Studies have shown that CLA may help reduce body fat, support lean muscle retention, and lower inflammation, all critical for maintaining strength and balance in later years. But feta isn't just good for your muscles. It's kind to your heart, too. Although it has a moderate sodium content, traditional feta is often richer in potassium and calcium, helping to balance blood pressure and support bone strength. And because it's made with goat or sheep milk, many older adults find it easier to digest, especially if they become sensitive to cow's milk. One woman I spoke with, Joyce 70, used to avoid cheese altogether because it made her feel bloated. But when she started adding a small handful of feta to her grain bowls and roasted vegetables, she felt satisfied without the heaviness. It's the first cheese I've been able to enjoy in years, she told me, and it actually helps me feel lighter, not weighed down. Feta is a reminder that flavor and health can live in the same bite. It's not just about what you cut out, it's about what you replace it with. Next, let's look at a humble, underrated cheese that delivers serious muscle-building power. If there's one cheese that's been underestimated for too long, it's this one, cottage cheese. It doesn't look fancy, and it won't win any gourmet awards. But when it comes to supporting your muscles after 60, it's a quiet powerhouse. Cottage cheese is soft, mild, and incredibly versatile. But what sets it apart is its high protein content. Just half a cup of low-fat cottage cheese contains around 14 grams of protein, nearly as much as 2 eggs. Even better, that protein is rich in casein, a slow-digesting dairy protein that provides your muscles with a steady supply of amino acids for hours. That makes cottage cheese especially valuable before bedtime, when your body does most of its repair work. And this isn't just theory. A study published in the British Journal of Nutrition found that older adults who consumed casein-rich dairy before sleep showed greater muscle retention and strength improvement over a 12-week period compared to those who didn't. That's huge for preventing sarcopenia, the age-related muscle loss that so often leads to weakness, instability, and falls. Cottage cheese is also low in saturated fat, especially if you choose the low-fat or fat-free versions, and it contains calcium, phosphorus, and selenium, nutrients that support bone health, metabolism, and immune function. For those watching their blood sugar, it's also low in carbs and has a gentle effect on insulin levels. And let's not forget digestion. Many seniors who struggle with lactose find cottage cheese more tolerable than milk or cream-based cheeses, especially when eaten in small portions alongside fruit or nuts. Take George, age 74. For years, he skipped breakfast and complained of fatigue by mid-morning. When he started adding cottage cheese with sliced banana and cinnamon to his routine, he felt fuller, more alert, and less wobbly on his feet. "I used to reach for coffee," he said. "Now I reach for protein, and my knees thank me for it." Cottage cheese may be humble, but it's exactly the kind of quiet nutrition that builds strength from the inside out. Coming up next, a cheese that's aged, sharp, and surprisingly good for your bones and muscles. When people think of Parmesan, they often imagine a fine dusting over pasta or soup, an afterthought, a garnish. But make no mistake, real Parmesan cheese, Parmigiano Reggiano, is one of the most nutrient-dense cheeses you can include in your diet after 60. Unlike soft or heavily processed cheeses, Parmesan is aged for 12 to 36 months, a process that concentrates its protein, minerals, and flavor. Just 1 ounce, about 28 grams of Parmesan contains roughly 10 grams of high-quality protein, nearly double what most cheeses offer in the same serving. And because of its dry, aged texture, it's easy to add a lot of nutrition in a small amount. For older adults, that concentrated protein is a game changer. It fuels muscle repair, supports tissue strength, and helps prevent the slow, invisible loss of muscle mass that makes everyday tasks harder over time. But Parmesan isn't just about protein. It's one of the best sources of bioavailable calcium, the kind your bones can actually absorb. In fact, just 2 tablespoons of grated Parmesan can deliver up to 20% of your daily calcium needs, along with phosphorus and zinc, which are critical for bone density and immune resilience. And unlike creamier cheeses, Parmesan is naturally low in lactose, making it much easier to digest for seniors with dairy sensitivity. Its rich, nutty flavor also means you don't need much to feel satisfied. I remember a retired teacher named Helen, 72, who came to me worried about brittle bones and shaky legs. She had been avoiding cheese altogether, thinking it was all bad. When we reintroduced Parmesan, sprinkled on roasted vegetables, stirred into soups, or shaved over a spinach salad, she not only regained her love of food, but her DEXA scans 6 months later showed improved bone markers. "I didn't expect cheese to make a difference," she said, but it did. Parmesan proves that aging well doesn't mean giving up flavor. It means choosing foods that pull double duty, satisfying the palate and protecting your body. Next, let's look at a creamy, tangy cheese that's easier to digest and especially kind to sensitive stomachs. Last but certainly not least, we have goat cheese, a soft, tangy option that's been quietly gaining popularity for all the right reasons. Unlike cow's milk cheese, goat cheese is made from milk that contains casein, a form of protein that's easier on the human digestive system, especially for older adults who may have developed lactose intolerance or dairy sensitivity over time. If cheese has ever left you feeling bloated, sluggish, or foggy, goat cheese might be your answer. But the benefits go far beyond digestion. Goat cheese contains around 9 grams of protein per 100 grams. And while that's slightly less than some hard cheeses, the real value lies in the type of fat it offers. Goat cheese is rich in medium-chain fatty acids, MCTs, which are digested more quickly and used as energy rather than stored as fat. That's especially useful for older adults who need clean fuel without straining their metabolism. Even more impressive is its anti-inflammatory profile. Goat cheese naturally contains more selenium, vitamin A, and copper than many cow milk cheeses. These nutrients help reduce oxidative stress, a major factor in age-related inflammation that affects joints, muscles, and brain function. And because of its soft, spreadable texture and bright, creamy flavor, goat cheese is incredibly versatile. You can spread it on whole grain toast, crumble it into roasted vegetables, or blend it into a high-protein dip with herbs and lemon. One man I worked with, min age 67, struggled with joint pain and constant bloating. He had tried cutting out cheese entirely until he discovered goat cheese. It's the first dairy that doesn't fight back, he told me. After a few weeks of using it in lunches and light dinners, he reported better digestion, clearer thinking, and even more restful sleep. Small shift, big payoff. Goat cheese may not be the most common option at the deli counter, but for aging bodies, it's one of the smartest. Gentle, nourishing, and deeply satisfying. Now that we've seen what to avoid and what to enjoy, let's pull it all together. So what do these four cheeses, processed slices, cream cheese, blue cheese, and American cheese, have in common? On the surface, they look harmless. Some are soft and mild, others are bold and nostalgic. But underneath, they share three dangerous traits for aging bodies: low protein, high saturated fat, and excessive sodium or additives. These cheeses often lack the complete amino acids your muscles desperately need after 60. And instead of feeding your body, they quietly increase inflammation, raise blood pressure, and slow down recovery. For older adults already dealing with stiffness, fatigue, or balance issues, that's like pouring sand into your gears every day. They also mislead you with comfort. Because they melt well, taste familiar, and feel indulgent, many seniors trust them without knowing what they're missing. You think you're getting dairy nutrition, but you're really getting filler. The hardest part? Most people eat these cheeses not because they're the best, but because they're convenient. But here's the good news. Awareness is power. Once you know what to look out for, you can take back control without giving up flavor, comfort, or the joy of food. Now let's look back at the four cheeses that don't just avoid damage. They actively build strength. Now compare that to the four cheeses we've just explored: feta, cottage cheese, Parmesan, and goat cheese. Each one brings something unique to the table, but they all share a common trait. They nourish instead of drain. These cheeses are high in complete protein, giving your muscles the building blocks they need to stay strong, responsive, and resilient, especially after 60. They're rich in calcium and bioavailable minerals, which help reinforce bones and protect against fractures. And they support better digestion with lower lactose content and anti-inflammatory nutrients that keep the gut and the rest of your body in balance. What's even more important is how easy they are to include in daily meals. A few crumbles of feta in a salad, a spoonful of cottage cheese at breakfast, a sprinkle of Parmesan on vegetables, or a swipe of goat cheese on whole grain toast. All of these are simple changes with serious impact. And the taste? These aren't sacrifices, they're upgrades. You're not giving up cheese. You're choosing smarter, deeper flavors that come with real benefits. Food can be joyful and healing at the same time. You just have to know what to reach for. Now let's bring everything together and talk about why these choices matter more than ever. So let's bring it all together. Cheese isn't the enemy, but like so many things after 60, it becomes less about what you like and more about what your body needs. The good news is, those two can still go hand in hand. You've seen how certain cheeses, like processed slices, cream cheese, blue cheese, and American-style singles, offer comfort on the surface but quietly undermine your strength, stability, and long-term health. They fill your meals but not your muscles. They soothe your cravings but not your inflammation. And when eaten daily, they become a silent contributor to the struggles so many older adults face: fatigue, muscle loss, joint pain, high blood pressure, and digestive trouble. But you've also seen that cheese can be healing. Cheeses like feta, cottage cheese, Parmesan, and goat cheese don't just taste good, They work for you. They deliver complete proteins, support your bones, improve your digestion, and reduce the kind of inflammation that makes daily movement harder with age. And they're easy to include. You don't have to become a chef or change your whole life. You just have to make smarter swaps, one bite at a time. It's not about perfection, it's about momentum. Maybe tomorrow morning, instead of reaching for that same old cream cheese, you try cottage cheese with fruit. Maybe tonight, instead of melting a slice of processed cheese onto your dinner, you sprinkle real Parmesan over roasted vegetables. These changes don't just change your plate. Over time, they change how you walk, how you feel, how you show up for the people you love. Because food is never just food. It's fuel. It's medicine. And for many of us, it's memory too. So here's my question to you. Which cheese surprised you the most today? Was it something you eat all the time without thinking? Or maybe something you've avoided that turns out to be your best ally? Tell me in the comments. I want to know what changes you're thinking of making. Whether you're 62 or 82, this moment, right here, could be the start of something better. And if this video spoke to you, if it gave you even one new idea to protect your strength, mobility, or independence, I hope you'll subscribe. Because every video here is built on science, compassion, and a deep belief that aging doesn't have to mean slowing down. You're never too old to feel stronger, and the right cheese might just be the start.